passion. I've been thinking about you and you only. And we just like to fuck, that's nothing else. You know, I'm falling in love, that's for someone else.
What's good, y'all? So in this video, I'm gonna be reacting to I think Fantastic Hip Hop, the worst songs made by popular rappers. I'm already expecting to see Grippy. I don't know when they put this out. Maybe Wagwan Delilah. I feel like I saw Kendrick on the cover too. What did he put out? It's kind of, I don't know. Range Brothers was always, you know. So we gonna see. We gonna see what he thinks is the worst song. I don't know if it's his opinion or if it's gonna be like ratings wise, publics. I don't know. We're just gonna get into it.
Ever released by some of the greatest MCs to ever walk the earth are, because today we're going to be looking at the worst song released by great rappers. Now, when it comes to the greats in hip-hop, while we always celebrate their cultural influence or classic albums, it's important to remember that even the best artists are human, and just for all the times they have made hits, they have also given us music that's genuinely terrible. From tracks that go against everything that has defined the very essence of an artist's greatness, to songs that have just aged so poorly as their lyrics have stood the test of time. The tracks we are about to look at don't just sit at the very bottom of great rappers' catalogs, but in some cases they have haunted these artists and been the biggest stains on their otherwise legendary resumes. So if you're ready to see the biggest musical disasters from the best of artists, let's waste no time, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the first rapper we are going to be looking at is none other than J. Cole, and when it comes to his worst song, while he has mostly given us nothing but quality over the years, he has genuinely had some terrible misses, and when it comes to his rock bottom, nothing is worse than his Cash Cobain collaboration Grippy. And with this song, I don't know if we have ever heard a more embarrassing performance from somebody.
No, this is worse. Possibly the worst. And I don't really like when J. Cole be doing the auto tune, but that if he wasn't doing the auto tune and it was just saying what he was saying, it was bullshit. He won't.
For the release of this cut, was considered one of the best lyricists in the game. Now with Grippy, as J. Cole usually is known for his technical excellence with his pen and conscious and poignant subject matter, this song takes all of that and throws it out the window, as instead of doing anything remotely powerful, interesting, or even just the slightest bit entertaining, J. Cole delivers what is not just the worst, but most humiliating performance of his career, as he doesn't just talk about the most shallow and surface level things he ever has, but on top of this, does it in the most annoying and mind-numbing way possible by rhyming the dullest bars he has ever written with the word Grippy, and between how bad the wordplay is to the way Cole's auto-tune pierces your ears time after time in this sonic horror show to echo the word Grippy or whatever he's forcing to rhyme with it. The fact that the guy who gave us projects like Forest Hills Drive, The Off-Season, and who was just challenged to compete for the crown of rap against Kendrick Lamar before this, gave us a musical disaster class this bad is beyond pathetic, and it really damages Cole's reputation more than most rappers' worst songs ever could. And all of these reasons make it undoubtedly J. Cole's worst song to date. Now, while listening to this song is not fun whatsoever, what is a lot of fun is using today's. There are a ton of horrible songs to choose from, and while just a few months ago, I would have said something like Ratchet Happy.
No, Ratchet Happy Birthday, which I have that shit on my page if you want to go find it. That the leak versus, the reference track versus his shit. That shit was so, like, really word for word.
Now, the post-Kendrick Lamar beef era of his career has played out so far. While there are a few all-time low moments you could pick, Drake's worst song has to be the Hard Part 6, as when you consider what the stakes of this song were and what they represented for Drake's.
Sonically, it sounded, it sounded good. Like, the beat was good. His flow was nice. It was what he was saying that was the bullshit. I would put Wagwan Delilah on this list. That's what I would put. Even You My Everything, because it's like it's like walking through a forest and you keep stepping on like sharp ass shit, and it's like so hard to get to the beautiful, the beautiful oasis and stuff, and then you gotta get back. That's how You My Everything feel. Like, it's some bullshit, and then to be honest, Drake's part is better, but it's not great, to be real with you. And it's just like, I'm not listening to that fucking song, that beginning part, to get to Drake's part. It's not happening.
Career. It's impossible to not recognize this as his biggest musical failure. Now, with the Hard Part 6, while the Omnibus beat is actually pretty solid and sets the tone well for Drake to do something strong, he did everything but show up strong on this track, as Drake delivered the most disgusting performance he ever has, as he isn't just straight up lying about some of the most important moments of this beef with Kendrick.
It was bad. If he didn't release that, I feel like there was a pretty big consensus that, like, Kendrick won. He had his stands. He had his stands riding for him. But it was like everyone else was kind of like, okay, after Not Like Us, all right. But he, like, put the nail in the coffin with his own song. because it was so trash. And that's just crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? How you do almost as much damage with your own song to yourself.
Kendrick Lamar, but he soils his own image in a way that is not just a new low for him, but is an unintentional self-sabotage from any rapper ever like we have never seen before, as while trying to defend his name from Kendrick Lamar's allegations and all the diss tracks he was putting out, Drake comes back with some of the worst rebuttals of all time, and whether it's lyrics that are written so poorly and fighting for his honor in such an embarrassing way that it makes him look like an insane person, or his demeanor, which while trying to fool us into thinking that Drake is better than this beef and Kendrick's antics as a whole, really just showed that Kendrick Lamar scared him in a way that made him change up his entire style and persona. Overall, with Drake recording this public meltdown of him trying to save whatever good was left about his image, and at the same time, by trying to make Kendrick look worse once again, but just failing, as he lied about such things as planting information to invalidate Kendrick's disses.
And you know what was it the most, like, well, a lot of people don't, like, when I was reacting to it, I've already listened to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers like 800 fucking times. So I already knew what he was referring to, and I knew that he was wrong. But a lot of people didn't know that he was wrong initially, and they were like, damn. Like, and then it's like, until this got to be like national, like all over Twitter and shit like that, where people were just like, bro, he's lying. And then the contradictions of the shit before, I saw big reactors like, well, I guess he lied. And I was just like, let's use our common sense. He just contradicted himself within like 30 seconds. He made some shit up, lied. That don't make sense. And even if he was like I said, the whole, that's the angle you mess with because you were touched or whatever or abused, is a crazy mental process and insensitive on all levels. So even that way, it's still like side eye. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
In every single way that a diss track can. I think it's safe to say that The Hard Part 6 is the worst song Drake's ever put out. Now, to round out our look at the worst songs from the Big Three, we will be looking at Kendrick Lamar's worst track, and while with Drake and J. Cole, their worst records were released in recent years. With Kendrick, the worst song he ever dropped is a cut that brings us all the way back to 2009 with his C4 mixtape, and specifically, the cut I'm in the Club. And with Kendrick Lamar admitting himself that this is his worst ever song,
said that shit
even
was
he
bad.
knows that this track is straight up garbage, and the reason why Kendrick and pretty much everybody else looks back on this song as the worst musical moment he has ever given us is not even necessarily because it's a bad late 2000s rap song, because for the standards of the time, it's really okay, as it just blends in with everything else.
Compared to his catalog.
The reason why this song is looked back on so horribly is because it's the antithesis of what made Kendrick Lamar so great following. From the obnoxious instrumental to Kendrick's vocals, which sound nothing like what we've been accustomed to in recent years, and instead, really just features him doing his best Lil Wayne impression. From top to bottom, this wannabe club banger is trying so hard to do something that, while just being plain and generic back then, feels so inauthentic and off-kilter to everything Kendrick Lamar has stood for. So overall, while Kendrick Lamar's worst song is far less of a disaster than most other rappers, and the fact that this cut was released at the very start of his career just shows how much he has improved and never looked back over the years in terms of his quality control. I think it's important to remember that in order to make an album like Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly, first, even Kendrick had to make generic pieces of trash like this. Now, moving on from here, we're going to be looking at the worst song from arguably the most successful rapper of all time in Eminem. And when it comes to the worst song to ever be drawn out of my...
I feel like later in his career, it started going bad. It looks like it might end off on a good note. I do think he should retire after this. Death of Slim Shady. I feel like this would be, if this is fire, I feel like this would be perfect. Retire while you know, at your all-time high. Maybe do features here and there.
...of Marshall Mathers. While it was a close race with some genuinely terrible songs, mainly from his 2017 album Revival, the worst thing M has ever dropped has to be his 2020 track Stepdad, which somehow, when deciding to use a beat from the one and only Alchemist, Eminem made one of the most monstrous musical creations ever, because instead of spitting bars over the silky smooth beats that Uncle Al is known to cook up, Eminem sings, screams, and whines about how he hates his stepdad, and between the way Eminem just babbles about how he absolutely despises everything his stepdad does, all over the strange beefs they have, like turning on the kitchen light amongst many other ridiculous things. With the way Eminem executes this and almost mocks his own emotions, this track feels like it was written for somebody who's 5. And if this cut had the wittiness of Eminem during the Slim Shady era of his career back in the late 90s, it could have became a twisted yet funny track, but the way everything is done here, Eminem just sounds so out of whack and clunky as he is rapping as a 50-year-old man but is whining like he's 12. And with the hook on this song, which is not just the worst hook Eminem has ever sung, but it's genuinely one of the most nauseating and disgusting hooks your ears will ever hear. It makes this painful listening experience all the more worse and forever cements the disaster of this track in your head like few other awful songs could. So for being the definition of what a genuine 0 out of 10 song looks like, Stepdad is the worst cut to ever come from Eminem. Now, when it comes to the worst song ever from another one of the greatest but also most polarizing hip-hop artists of all time, in the one and only Kanye West, throughout Ye's entire career and catalog, he has done a ton of wild stuff on songs themselves, as whether it's a track as off the rails as Lift Yourself, or something as ridiculous as his Lil Pump collab I Love It, through even Kanye's most ridiculous songs. The worst track he's ever stamped his name on is the song from his 2021 album Donda, Tell the Vision. Now, while even Kanye making songs as ridiculous as something that would involve him dressing up as a water bottle with Lil Pump is bad, at the bare minimum, those songs at least serve some sort of purpose, whether it's to troll or not, but with this record, it is the most confusing and out-of-character thing Ye has ever released because in addition to being terrible, the song just has no direction whatsoever. Now, if you don't know, this track just...
Nah, that Lil Pump song was terrible. Like, I don't care, troll or not. What? Like, what?
features a god-awful offbeat piano loop that plays while Pop Smoke's vocals just jump into the cut and say we made it over and over again at the most random times.
Some of this,
and these aren't just any pop vocals, but ones that were already used on a track with Pop and Ye of the same name that dropped months before this. And while that song was a mess, it somehow got 100 times worse here, as the quality of Pop Smoke's vocals are so raw and unrefined, as it must have been ripped off a very low-quality recording he had left over, and it's so abysmal that you can even hear another beat in the mix behind everything, and for all of this coming together to make one of the most confusing musical disasters out there. While this song isn't embarrassing or career-altering like some of the other tracks we have looked at are, it's just a flat-out mess that shows us that while Kanye has made some of the most elaborate and well-produced hip-hop songs ever, even he can miss and make a song that offers genuinely nothing. Now, when it comes to one of the most consistent and beloved rappers out right now, there are few people you can put into the same sentence as Tyler, the Creator, and while throughout his career, he has a few songs that have just missed the mark miserably, and at the top of this list, Tyler's never given us anything worse than the track off his 2015 album Cherry Bomb, Keep the O's. Now, with this cut being a collab between Tyler and his idol Pharrell Williams, considering the otherwise fantastic track record they have working with one another, you'd think that this song would be just as great, but on this track, I don't know what these two were thinking, as they just created a musical abomination that makes for one of the most turbulent listening experiences out there. The production on this track...
I'm gonna have to check out some of these songs, because I haven't heard...
The track just sounds like you spliced a bunch of random noises together, and the mixing is so bad that between it and the weird filters used on the actual vocals, they hold almost no presence whatsoever and just add to this insanely headache-inducing background noise. Now, even as the beat switches toward the end of this track, and things do get better, everything just feels like it was left in the demo phase for Tyler, the Creator standards, that while having bursts of genuine...
Perfect. This was a perfect song, perfect video. I think I reacted to it, but it was fine.
Creativity are just so unrefined and miserable at times that the entire cut is just unlistenable. Now, overall, I do appreciate this type of a bad song over tracks that are just embarrassing and generic, but still. What we can see with a cut like this is that just because a song is creative does not mean it is necessarily good. Now, when looking at rappers and their worst songs, while some guys we have looked at here have genuinely released some sheer and utter garbage, one artist who really does not have a single bad song to their name is Travis Scott, as throughout his entire catalog, the worst song he has ever put out during his time in the limelight is K-pop, and while Utopia's lead single was criticized for just not feeling Travis Scott enough, outside of the fact that this isn't as creative, nor does it have the one...
Well, maybe let's not say bad. I don't know. There's just some stuff of his I don't like. Maybe it's not a bad song, it's just not for me. Yeah, I don't know. This is all like, I feel like...
we all expect to be engulfed in while listening to the Houston rapper. This collab between Travis, The Weeknd, and Bad Bunny is super solid, as it's just a chill summer banger to put on. Now, while Travis Scott still has a lot of time left in the limelight and can definitely still release that one track that everybody just despises, the fact that after over a decade of being in the game, the worst song he has to his name is just a calm but plain banger for his standards that's still a lot of fun at does not understand the concept of quality control like him is Kid Cudi, as despite him having so many great albums...
Like, I can recognize that Kid Cudi's a good artist, but he's just, like, not my cup of tea. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't.
Songs and moments over the years. Also has a sizable amount of misses, and this year alone, Cudi missed a lot, as between the mess of his Insano projects, he didn't just fumble this chapter of his career with its poor marketing and presentation, but he released his very worst song on the second project in this run with the track Willis, which features Chip the Ripper, and with this cut, this may genuinely be the worst song I have ever heard. With this audio clip that Kid Cudi's trying to call
worst ever? Worse than Grippy? I'm gonna have to, like I said, some of the ones that he's naming, I never heard, so I'm gonna listen to it.
It is incomprehensibly bad, as for 4 minutes, Cudi puts together the most confusing performance of his career, as he doesn't even say anything or try to use his one-of-a-kind vocal ability for good, and instead just screeches over the track with this inaudible singing that the more it progresses, challenges your sanity and makes you wonder how Cudi went from dropping albums like these just a few years ago to
look at the artwork. You see, it says we're on a different mental space, so maybe he heard the beauty in the screeching. You gotta think about these things. Some people just on a different mental plane.
But this is one of those songs that really makes you question how much an artist has left in the tank as a
cute,
whole.
though.
Because if Kid Cudi's inaudible squealing with the most annoying accents possible is making an album, what could possibly be on his cutting room floor? My words can't even describe the mess of Kid Cudi's Willis because with so much garbage that you can't even describe because the track is literally doing nothing. It's genuinely awful beyond words and even makes songs we looked at on this very list like Grippy look good in comparison. Now, the next rapper we are going to look at
That's
is one of the most
wild.
decorated and respected MCs of all time in Nas, and despite his legendary career that's dominance spans from the early 90s to this very present day, Nas has released some horrible tracks throughout his time in the limelight, and while there are some strange performances all over his catalog, the most alarming one came on his final album with Hit Boy in Magic 3, and while the rest of Nas and Hit Boy's 6-album run gave us not just their, but some of the best music that rap has had to offer this decade so far, there is one song Nas gave us that is beyond terrible, and this is the cut PYG, and with this song, between the annoying beat that repeats the song's title over and over again and just suffocates your ears by doing this, to Nas's lyrical performance on this track, which right in the midst of the wisest and most mature he has ever sounded, does a complete 180 as he pretty much uses this song to send up a signal to any female fans he has as he lists out his requirements for his next dream girl, which involves them being younger all the way to the point that their fathers listen to Nas. I don't even
That's weird.
not just musically annoying, but it's so off-putting what the message it's trying to tell us. I don't think anybody wants to hear a 50-year-old man
Pretty
who's
young girl. No. Yeah, that one, that's weird. I'm surprised I ain't hear about this. My brother's a big Nas fan. Maybe he ain't even hear the song. Because what the fuck?
a song on their album as a sort of bat signal to find love, and not just any sort of relationship, but one where the title and lyrics clearly state something that is very questionable out of context, and for this song just feeling so uncomfortable and head-scratching. This is without a doubt not just the worst track Nas has ever put out, but it's really a disgrace in terms of how bad and uncomfortable it is. Now we're going to continue this tangent of weird songs that should have never been released, and here, next up, we have the worst song from the notorious B.I.G., which is F You Tonight, which besides from the beat, which sounds like somebody just poured water all
No,
over.
there's one from him where he says, I don't fucking, it was a diss track. And I was just like, the fuck? He would have been canceled. He would have been out of there. Because he was saying some wild shit.
Over a keyboard, the faint but creepy background vocals from one horrible person, and the singing from another horrible person.
Hey,
it's
listen.
pretty much an Avengers team up for some of the worst people the music industry has ever had in it. And of course, outside of all of this that drags the track down to rock bottom, you do have Biggie, who while not doing anything bad on this cut, just delivers a performance that is so standard for him that being in the midst of all of this garbage does hardly anything to make this song less unbearable. So for the awful production and vocals from one terrible person, and the creepy singing that was inspired by who knows what from another industry villain, just leaving this track with a presence
Industry villain. That's what we calling him from now on. That man weird.
that makes you feel so uncomfortable, even beyond how mediocre it was already just for Biggie standards. F You Tonight is the worst song to ever be associated with a name as legendary as Biggie Smalls. Now, right alongside Biggie and Nas, the next rapper we have to take a look at is Jay-Z, and while through the years, despite
Y'all heard that he's the next one to get exposed for some shit. Like, I don't know if it's Diddy stuff, like Diddy type stuff, or if it's like he was just like a bad person or something. Like I don't know. Cause it's just a lot of weird stuff going on when you start to look at what these people have done, and then I get it. Some of the Diddy parties, like I guess the people that showed up might not have had a clue what was going on at the after parties. Because it seemed like the regular parties where the celebrities were seemed to be kind of, you know, normal, whatever, they were filmed or whatever, but it was like people were saying like the after parties is when shit got weird and people would leave. So I guess initially to some people it just looks whatever, but the mofos that is like, yo, right hand man is staying with you all the time, whatever, they knew what the fuck was going on. I really do. Now I cannot believe that they didn't know that shit was going on, especially if they were there. So with certain people being as close as they are, it just makes you look at them like, not saying he had to publicly expose them, but why would you stay close to this person if you know they're fucking weird? I don't know.
greatness. Some of the poppier features he has done and questionable collab albums have hurt his batting average. No other song has had a bigger stain on the rest of his career in terms of quality than his 1997 track, I Know What Girls Like, which is a collab between Lil' Kim and, you may have guessed it, the clown who used to be known as Puffy. And with this track, It really feels like the features are just running to Jay-Z to try to recapture the same magic they would make with Biggie, but beyond just this. When we look at Jay-Z's performance, although his later attempted club and pop hits became much more refined and in some cases, era-defining moments because of the skill and wit he was able to possess on them to make hits, this song makes for the worst listen in Hov's entire catalog because after showing how gritty and lethal of an MC he was on his debut album Reasonable Doubt, and also through a lot of the projects
They just be doing anything outside my fucking window. Oh God, I don't even live on the first floor.
this song is on In My Lifetime Volume 1. Jay-Z looks lost like we have never seen him either before or after this moment, as between the shaky instrumental, which is trying way too hard to fit in with the popular trends of the time, to Jay's lyrics, which lack the sharpness he was known for in the late 90s.
Alright, they need to shut that shit the fuck up. I ain't gonna lie. You heard that? They heard me. Hey.
And the finesse he was developing.
Turn that shit
we get
up.
a rare performance in Hov's catalog where he doesn't just sound uninspired with how on the nose and overly graphic and gross the lyrics are, but he just straight out sounds like a terrible rapper who doesn't even understand the most simplest conventions of the genre and overall. When we look at Jay's worst song and Biggie's, and see how the rich lyrics and signature traits of these rappers were twisted to make these wannabe pop songs that try to
And who was around them.
have a mass appeal at the sacrifice of the most important thing in all of rap music, integrity. We see one clear factor that was heavily responsible in not just making these awful songs, but when we look at the entirety of both Biggie and Jay-Z's legendary catalogs, because of how forced and inauthentic they feel, resulted in their worst tracks ever. So I am going to be leaving this list here for now. Here are the worst songs released by some all-time great rappers, and let me know. Do you agree with these picks so far, and would you like to see more of these in the future? I can't wait to hear what you have to say, and if you want to see why after all of the humiliation and embarrassment, things somehow just got even worse for Drake, check out the suggested video.
Wagwan. Is that what you're talking about? It got worse. So for the first, I feel like half of the video, I was on board. I knew what he was talking about. I could kind of chime in, give my opinion. But towards that second, I need to listen to these songs. If they're that fucking bad, I kind of don't want to because they're bad. But yeah, I kind of want to see what he's saying. But when he said that Eminem and Kid Cudi was screaming on the screeching and stuff, I'm not looking forward to listening to that at all. Find it very interesting. Like I said at the end though, Jay-Z and Biggie's worst tracks were they were both associated with R. Kelly and Diddy. I don't know. I'm just saying. And I think Kanye has had some really bad tracks, to me at least. And maybe I just didn't understand them or get what was going on, but there's been a few. So I'll listen to the one he said, but I could have put some on the list to be real. But anyways, this was interesting. Like I said, I think it's all up for it's just personal opinion. I'm gonna look at comments, see what they're talking about. But anyways, y'all comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. I'll see y'all in the next one.